On today's episode, we talk about quitters. Cue the intro. So it's true. Yes, Jadius Dempsey decided to quit his job and pursue a dream. And I know I can guarantee you that some of you watching now who have a dream on the inside of you that maybe you're just feel tied down to some 9-to-5 job and you're working in some cubicle or driving some company car. So I want to have Jadius talk a little bit about what gave him the unction or the push or the oomph to really quit his job and pursue ultimately what God had for him, which would be his best. So Jad, I'll let you talk about that. You worked at your job for what, like 15 years?
15 years, that's absolutely right, man.
15 years this guy worked a job and then just quit one day?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, not 2 weeks, like, drop your keys and go. Insane, I know.
So, Jad worked for a ATM company. You fixed ATMs, right?
Yep, fixed ATMs.
And it just got a little bit kind of, not hard, but there was some tension, I guess would be the right words to use. And
yeah, something that for me, there's been a couple of times when God has moved me on in my life, and usually he uses some natural tensions. So the very thing that I've loved in the past, it just starts to show some frustrations and almost like a heart change. And it's not that I hate the company or anything, but just that's kind of his way. Like I almost have to fall out of love with it, in order to move on to the next chapter. It's kind of how God's done it for me in the past. So, but yeah, I mean, I literally have never quit a job like ever. In fact, pretty much every single job I've ever had, the only reason I've ever changed jobs was because I moved, like out of state moved. I guess I would consider myself a pretty loyal guy, so it was kind of insane, but.
And it was, and believe it or not, Jad has a newer home and has been able to make his mortgage payments and pay his bills. And you did this before Christmas time, right?
Yeah.
And God still provided, correct?
Yeah, it's been 3.5 months now, and God has still provided supernaturally. And so for me, I really felt like it was something God told me to do. This was not my idea, because if it was, I probably wouldn't have a house right now. I don't necessarily anybody just doing whatever the crap they feel, because there's definitely times in the past I would have loved to quit, but it has to be more than that. Sometimes you just have to know that you know that you know.
So for someone watching who doesn't really know what you're saying, like I've joked around with Christine and I've said, I think I'd have to have God come sit at my bedside and say, quit your job and do this. And then maybe I would do it. But how did you know that you know that you know, as you were saying, that it was the right time to quit this job and go into basically full-time ministry at Impact City Church? How can someone, and maybe it's not church, but maybe it's quit my job and pursue some entrepreneur or company or whatever the case might be. How can you best give advice to someone watching on how they can do that or how they would know?
Sure. So I would say that there's a couple of different ways. Number one, I would say that don't ever let other people run your life, because at the end of the day, the decisions are between you and God and nobody else. And it doesn't matter if nobody else understands. You kind of got to listen to your heart, listen to your gut. For me, when I kind of felt like I was given another additional sign, God had kind of been giving me several, but I basically had to have what I would call this wet fleece moment. So in the Bible, there's a guy named Gideon, and God told him to do something, and it was pretty crazy. And so he's like, all right, Lord, I want to lay out this fleece, and then basically I want the fleece to be wet and the ground to be dry. And then God gave him that sign. And even then, Gideon's like, God, please forgive me, but I got to double down on this. And now I want the opposite to happen the very next day. So for me, because everything was on the line, I basically had the same exact moment. And so I was like, God, if this is really what you want me to do, because I basically prayed about it that day. So for my wife, she said, go ahead and pray. And so I did, and I basically laid it out to God, and I said, God, I need like a sign, like for real, and it's got to be kind of this 1% shot that you got to give me the sign. And then God gave me that sign. Wow. And even then I was, you know what, like maybe I just need to take the weekend and pray about it more or whatever. And then God kind of doubled down on it and just smacked me in the face all the more. And I just knew that it was time to go. And so I had to drop my keys and basically tell the president of the company that I can't work here anymore. And of course I couldn't tell him, really the real reasons why, because he wouldn't understand. And and other people, even that my company thought I was crazy, that thought I was going to lose my house. I knew it was insane. I was like, God, this better be you, man, because everything's at stake. So, I would just say for people out there, whether you believe in God or whether you don't, no matter what, it's just one of those things that you just have to know in your core that it's time to go and to move on, But one thing I love actually that our pastor says all the time is sometimes you just got to jump and build your wings on the way down. And to me, that sounds a little crazy, but there's actually been a lot of times when I've had to just jump. And usually it's not until that pressure is on that you can actually figure stuff out a lot faster than you can when you're super comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I actually really believe in getting out of your comfort zone too, because there's a lot of times when like your financial genius will just open up the second that you decide to just, okay, now I have to figure things out.
You're probably more like my side where I want to plan 6 months, a year, 10 years down the road. And for me to quit something would be like you did. I would just have to have God do the fleece thing with me because I don't know that I could do it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm amazed and I admire what you've done because I think 10 years from now when you look back, it's just going to be one of those amazing stories of a guy who really listened to what God was telling him to do. He followed through with it, and now 10 years later, he's got this amazing story that maybe some of us would wish that we had, but we were too conservative or whatever, we just didn't take that plunge. Now, he's not telling everyone to quit their job.
That's right. Don't do it.
So don't just do that.
Don't do it.
But for Jad, it was just a different situation where he felt called into the ministry, and then he became you're full-time, right?
Yeah.
Full-time children's pastor, youth pastor, basically student director at the church, but he felt the tug of God just doing that for him. So his story is probably a little different than yours.
Sorry. So. Like Shia LaBeouf always says, just do it.
Isn't that Nike?
No, well, yeah, Nike too, but his is more dramatic. And especially if you watch the remixes, it's got like fire explosions behind him.
Just do it! Make your dreams come true! Do it! Nothing is impossible! Do it! Make your dreams come true!
Just do it! Just make your dreams come true!
Each week we like to end the show with a question of the day or the week or whatever, and we love to hear your responses as well. So for this episode, we're going to have Jad ask the question. I don't know what it is, so I'll answer it my best, as will Jad. So I'll hand this back to you.
All right. So it says... The crap, you lost the page. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. You didn't. It's right here. I just read it wrong. If you had the opportunity to write as a career, what would you write?
Ooh. If I had the opportunity to write as my career, what would I write? A few years ago, I loved writing these little notes on Facebook, and I think Facebook has expanded what this is now, but I would always read my Bible, and then I would construct these little kind of like one-page notes, and I have them still on my Facebook profile now. I think I did like 50 to 100 notes.
Wow.
So I have them on there. They're kind of like almost like mini sermons, if you will, but I never really pushed them out that hard because, you're always kind of afraid what people will think. So I probably would write like mini devotionals or mini sermons or something that was Bible related or something like from a book I read. So that's what I would do.
That's really cool. I would say for me, there's probably about 3 different aspects. One thing I would definitely write on is finances. Just because I think that there's not enough good stuff out there about finance. I mean, there is, don't get me wrong, but like there can never be enough teaching on finances. I actually think it's almost like eating or like reading the Bible. It's like you will always be in a different place in your life that like even Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace could help you, or I Was Broke Now I'm Not, or all these other programs, because you always need to refine your finances until you're like a millionaire. And even if you're a billionaire, you could still probably learn something about finances, how to apply. So finances would be one. Another one would probably be about transitioning into parenthood from basically not having kids to having kids, because that was a rough transition for me. And I know there's a lot of other people out there that you're just not prepared. Like, how can you be? You don't know what it's like, And then the third thing I would say is probably just some just like out of the box, cultural thinking on scripture and things that maybe aren't necessarily taught nowadays. So, yeah.
Good stuff. All right. If you have any more questions for Jad or want to just hear more about his story, you could probably find him on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or any of those things. Message me direct. I can get you his info. Anything else?
Do you tweet?
And I do. I've started tweeting again.
Have you?
So,
It's been a while
Vin
since I've
Shirey.
tweeted. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm using Twitter more for like other like kind of tweeting out scripture and stuff. So,
That's good.
anything else? Any parting words for the Shirey Life crew?
Just pray about it. Honestly, that's what you should do. Pray.
If you have any more questions for Jad, again, let me know, and we will see you next week on your Monday Motivation.